Hello everybody, it's James here and it is Ask Dutch Anything episode 49. We're going to do very, very quick plugs. I've got 2 books, Dutch has got 2 books, and you get those signed, Dutch's books anyway, by going to Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. There he is, as he manhandles his tomes. There's also diplomas that you can get signed by the Dirty Dutchman. A couple of hats might be around as well for signing as well. Pro Wrestling tees are on, links are in the description. You support the show by buying a t-shirt. Facebook, WSI Network, but it's still called Storytime with Dutch because for whatever reason it won't let me change the name for it for now. Stevie Richards, the Stevie Richards Show, out every single Friday after Dutch Mantell's show is out. So fine show. It's doing really, really well at the moment. Please support us.
So does Stevie follows this show?
He watches.
Oh, he does?
Oh, yeah. He brings you up on the show quite a lot. He quotes you.
Bastard.
I know. He's stealing your stuff. He's really
He's a good guy. I like him.
Yeah. And the most important thing to mention is the email. Questions for Dutch at gmail.com.
Do you ever tell the story about it when he stood up to Bradshaw at that ECW show? Or
It was the week after, and he smashed him in the head with a chair.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, we went into detail about that. Have you ever spoke to Bradshaw about that?
No, I need to call him up and ask him.
Because the story...
You know, Bradshaw, he had a little bit of a old school attitude about him. Well, he would give some of those guys hell. Who was the little Clarence Mason? Was it Clarence Mason?
Clarence Mason, yeah.
He used to ride with that. John used to ride him like a dog. Boy, and he would just own Clarence Mason's ass the whole time he was in the car. Of course, it was in fun, but after you do it a while, you said, well, maybe he don't. And Clarence said, does he not like me? I said, no, he likes you, I guess, or he wouldn't be messing with you.
We wouldn't be in the car.
Yeah, well, that was one reason, but John rode him like a son of a gun, and he would ride a lot of new guys in the dressing room. He'd ride them too, and he just, and you start talking about, what do you think about this? He had a special way to do it, but he would single them out and just zero in on them. And sometimes it got a little brutal. And I told him, John, you need to lighten up. Oh, I'm just playing. And I said, yeah, but that guy doesn't think you like him. He said, oh, I love him. I said, well, strange way to show it.
It's funny. I remember interviewing Val Venus ages ago, and he just said, if I wanted entertaining for the day, I'd just follow Bradshaw around because he was just like an entertainment machine.
Oh, he was into everything. He's like a little kid sometimes. And just, if you just follow him around and watch and everybody's like his long lost brother or something. He'd throw his arms around people, then end up ribbing them. I think one time, Mark, what's the big guy's name? The big black guy, Mark,
Hey, who are we talking about?
The big lifter.
Henry. Mark Henry, yeah.
Oh, Mark Henry wanted to kill him a couple of times.
Huh?
Oh, yeah, because he was just riding. I forgot what happened to Mark. They ribbed him on something. And I think he told this story on a podcast. I think he said, John, if this has gone far enough. I forgot what it was about now. And he said, you keep doing it. He said, I'm going to find you and you're going to be in the hospital. I'm just kidding. He said, no, I'm telling you, this ends here. I forgot what he had done to Mark. And he ended up telling Ron Simmons too about he was going to kill his tag team partner. You know what Ron's reaction to it was?
Damn.
I got a great story about Mr. Simmons, but I can't tell it.
Oh, I know what it is as well. No, you can't tell that one.
No, I can't tell that one.
No.
So,
okay.
And now everybody's going to be saying, oh, why don't you do a podcast on the stories you can't tell? Well, that'd be the last time I would do any of those podcasts, because Ron, whoever I told the story on, would track me down and get me.
Yeah.
But anyway, that is a good story.
Yeah. It's a shame. I would have loved to have Ron on, but he's too expensive. So it's not.
What's he want?
A lot.
Money?
Yo.
He wants money?
Yeah. But a lot of
Really?
it. Yeah. So that's why I've never had him on WSI. Anyway, first question. And it's actually the question that we started with last week. So in fact, I still don't know the reason. This never happened before. My computer had just decided in the middle of Dutch saying something that the audio died in my headphones. It was still recording apparently, but the audio went. And it wasn't anything to do with the settings in the computer. I tried to change them to optimal. It just crashed completely, the audio. So I had to reset and it was fine. So hopefully it won't happen this time. Joe from Boston. Mark Calloway's podcast, both Undertaker and Godfather shared stories about how the Godfather wrecked the Undertaker's car trying to get back to Nashville from Memphis in the middle of a snowstorm. The Undertaker says also that him and Dutch would drive with him sometimes. Does Dutch have any good stories about driving with the Undertaker? So we got as far as, but you're going to have to tell the entire story again, but we got as far as the Undertaker driving around in a Ford Escort.
Well, Mark had come to Tennessee, and I think he left and he went back to home, and he was working in Texas for a while, but then wanted to come back. And I says, because I think he had something going on here that he wanted to continue. So I brought him back. And then the next thing I know, Mark's 6'8", 6'9". He bought a car. And he bought a little Ford Escort. It's a compact car. And I went, why in the hell did you buy this? He said, oh, well, it's good on gas. and it was affordable. I said, all right.
Budget conscious dead man.
Oh, and we would get in the car sometimes Undertaker and Soul Taker, Charles Wright was his name, Godfather. He'd go with us. That car was packed. So Mark would let his seat all the way back. He'd drive, and I'd get in the front seat. And Godfather's a big guy too, so I'd have to pull my seat all the way up, and the dashboard of the car was right here. That's so Godfather wouldn't be so compressed, and we would ride that way. So I don't remember Godfather doing something to his car. I don't remember that, but I do remember getting that little Ford Escort. I do remember owning it after Mark, because he had went to WWE, WWF, and he didn't want the car anymore. And I was driving it without insurance, and he thought that I would wreck it, and then since it was in his name, that he'd be held liable for it. So he come and he just gave me the car, granted me the car, and my daughter ended up driving it too. But that car was too much, man. But I do remember he bought that car, and when Godfather went with us, we would get out of the car, say at a rest area, at a truck stop. People would look at us like, what the hell just got out of that car? They're both big guys, and they both got out of that little car, and then me, it was packed. But I will say one thing, nobody said anything to us. Nobody. We just walked by, and they just looked at us. So I felt safe with those guys. So, but I don't remember Charles doing anything really unusual, other than telling people to leave the car alone or leave us alone, and that people would back off.
I'm wondering if Undertaker or Mark ever told you this. Did he ever tell you how much WWF offered him in that first year? to jump over?
No, he never told me. I remember how he got to WCW. I was at Mark's apartment complex.
You lived together, by the way, at the time, didn't you?
I stayed at his place a couple of times, yeah. Then we got a place close to him. Well, we were getting ready to leave one day, and I remember, and I don't know if I've told this story or not, but that's when Spivey got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
No, Sid got hurt. And they were looking for for the skyscrapers. Anyway, I suggested Mark, and that was a Wednesday, and he started in WCW the next Monday. That was a quick start. So, but I've told this story, right?
Yeah. And then a year later, Ollie told him he'd never make any money, and he went to the WWF and had some limited success for 30 years.
Well, he wanted to go to WWF right away. And I suggested, well, before you go up there and spend every bit of physical capital you have, why don't you go to WCW and let Vince look at you first? So he won't think that benefits him. And he can see you there and saying, oh, what can I do with him? And so I said, I would do that. And of course, he didn't tell me that Vince mentioned anything to him about money or anything like that. But what he did, I don't know if he followed my advice or not. He didn't go right then, but he did go to WCW. Vince took a look at him and took an interest in him. Now he became his project. And a lot of stories about how Vince came upon the Undertaker gimmick for him. And I've heard a lot of theories. And have I said this before? Vince envisioned Undertaker in the image of himself, that he was immortal. And I heard that story, and you heard all these stories about Vince and all his damn little quirks and things that he was just different. He was always using like cleaner on his hands, and he would be washing his hands all the time. He was a germaphobe. But when he came upon that Undertaker gimmick, and I remember the first time he was on the pay-per-view, he made a big impression. And from then on out, it was nothing but, pedal to the metal, and they went with Undertaker full steam. And it made both of them a lot of money.
Imagine if Vince had decided to use a quirk as a character. Here is the debut of the germaphobe.
Yeah, and he's 6'9", washing his hands all the time.
Yeah, and he's wearing like a surgical mask, and he's the boy in the bubble, essentially. Right, yeah. We'll move on. Big D from Tennessee says, do champions carry title belts with them away from the events, or are belts carried by the promotion from town to town? So I guess it depends on the promotion, and I mean, you carried your own belts in the territory days, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. If you had a belt in the territories, yeah, you took it yourself. Put it in your bag. But I think in some of these, I guess the WWE, I wondered, I don't know. I guess you still take it, I guess.
Well, I've heard something these days. There's two different versions of, let's say, the IC belt. The one that you carry around with you, and they will also have one for TV only. So it's pristine, there's no tears or marks, and it looks pristine. But if you're going to house show, you will carry that belt with you. And then there's just a TV version of it, so it always looks clean.
Okay, the house shows you use the belt in your bag.
Yeah.
But the pristine version, that's for TV only.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It sounds exactly like what they would come up with.
Next.
Thanks for answering that question.
No worries. Nick Butcher, Letchworth, Hertfordshire, UK, says, hey, Dutch and James. Great show. I've just subscribed and I'm enjoying Dutch's stories. Thank you. I remember some vignettes from Vade Hanson in the WW. It says F, but it was E. So,
what Hanson?
Vade, Vade. Now, I know who this guy was because he used to wrestle I think he's English, and he used to wrestle in a little local promotion called FWA or something like that, and I remember seeing him on that. Anyway, they brought this guy up to the main roster. They shot one vignette with him, I think, and he was going to feud straight away with The Undertaker. And then The Undertaker looked at it and went, not a chance in hell. Anyway, and then he disappeared forever. Anyway, I was told that there were going to be a new faction with a biblical twist. I understood that the members were Kane, Abel, who was supposed to be played by Brian Lee, Jacob and Eli, the Harris brothers, and I was told that you were going to be Uncle Zebakiah, who was supposed to be a preacher and the manager of the group. Is there any truth in these rumours? And if not, why did it never happen? So this is around 2007. Did you ever hear about this?
Never heard about it, but it was a biblical creation. Ron and Don Harris were Eli and Jacob. Biblical names.
Sounds like Wyatt family almost. Do you know what I mean?
Except we couldn't see, we didn't have a lantern and we couldn't see the future or any of that stuff. And Zebakiah, a biblical name. But I never heard anything about this, possibly because that first guy that you brought up, what's his name? Vade?
Yeah, Vade Hanson, yeah.
He did one vignette and then he was gone. So I guess when he left, I guess the idea of putting us all together, that doesn't make sense anyway, and I'm glad I missed that. But I did get the Jacob and Eli Blue. I did get that, and I didn't necessarily like the story behind it. We were supposed to be like from the hills of West Virginia, and we were so stupid, or they were, Ron and Don, they'd never even seen TV. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, guys. I mean, I didn't say anything. I was just thinking to myself, oh, wait a minute, guys. This is a little bit too much. I don't think anybody's going to believe this. And yeah, I was right. Nobody did believe it. So, but it didn't go far. So it went far enough to kind of, and I told you that they both stranded me there, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They just got up and left, and they got mad about a payoff because I think I ended up making more money. They paid me more money than they did, and they got hot. I don't blame them. But they hopped up and run off, and all of a sudden I was sitting there with nobody, and that's when I ran into a Justin Hawk Bradshaw, and I became his manager.
Just to clarify, it was 2008, not 2007. But no, I've never heard that. In fact, Nick, can you write back in and tell us where you heard that? Because I just want to know who suggested it in the first place. I've never heard of it. Dutch has never heard of it. Okay, we're going to move on. Jeff, San Angelo, Texas, says, back in the early days of TNA, dirt sheets were suggesting that you and Dusty Rhodes were butting heads over the creative direction of the company. Can you talk to us about working with Dusty and why he was given the lead booker role instead of you? Thanks. So TNA, what year are we talking? Early 2004 or something?
Something like that. I never heard it either. I didn't butt heads with Dusty. I would just let go from the creative team, and I would go to TV. I would go to Orlando, and I would sit there for 2 days, do absolutely nothing. Dusty didn't ask me to do anything. He didn't ask me to produce this segment or to produce that interview, to go to the truck, to tell them this or tell them that. I did a big fat zero. I did nothing. So as far as butting heads with him, no, I didn't butt heads with him. I barely talked to him, to tell you the truth. So, but it was a very difficult time in my career because I didn't know what was going on. I don't think they knew what was going on. And all of creative was dismissed. Dusty had it all. And so usually when we would write TV out, we had a guy that was with the computer there, and he would put all this, he would type all this stuff out, all our notes and everything. Dusty had 2 pages, handwritten notes that he would come in and they would mimeograph them off, copy them, and everybody, and you was trying to read the writing. And that was it. And so we would sit down and we would do the TV, and Dusty would go over the TV, and it'd be about 15 or 20 minutes to go over like a 2-hour show. And we were gone. We were out of the creative meeting for the day. And I didn't even have to go to the creative meeting. I went, but I had nothing to do. But as far as butting heads, hard to butt heads when, you're not doing anything and not, talking about the show to him. So no, I'm gonna have to call. I'm gonna have to throw the flag on that one. That never happened.
So what was the story?
And wait a minute. Wait a minute. What is in dirt sheets? What dirt sheet said that? Meltzer?
I remember reading this a long time ago, and I think it might have been the other one, the PW Torch, maybe.
I don't know where they got that.
So what's the story with Jeff or Dixie bringing Dusty in then?
I don't know how Dusty got there. I really don't. I think Dusty called her up and Dusty Rhodes, big name. I think Dixie's father remembered Dusty, a big name, and the mama, Dixie's mother, remembered Dusty. And he was a bigger name than Jeff Jarrett or Dutch Mantell or Vince Russo. So let's bring him in. So they were going to bring him in, but he didn't want to work with us. He said, "No, I'm not going to do that. If I come in, I'm going to do it all by myself." So because Dusty didn't want to, on the off week, we would go to Orlando like every 2 weeks on a Monday, and we would do TV on Tuesday and Wednesdays, and we would. That would be our TV commitment. Next week we were off, so that's when we would have the creative meetings. But Dusty didn't want to come up and have a creative meeting from Atlanta. He didn't want to do that. He said, "No, I'll just stay home and write it here." And that's how Vince got let off at the time. Jeff went home. So we were just... It's hard to read a company like that. You don't know where their heads are. I never knew where Dixie's head was anyway. And it's going to who Dixie talked to. Dixie made a mistake. She would talk to the dirt sheet writers. And I never told her, but some people told her, don't talk to them like that. Because all you do is giving them material. Of course, they need content for their papers. And they were just doing the papers then, like the Inquirer, or the Observer. They were just doing papers then, and all they wanted was information. But Dixie didn't know exactly what to tell them, and she would tell them too much, and they would take everything that she told them and amplify it. And I don't. How long did Dusty stay there? Does it say?
No, I was going to ask you the same thing.
I don't think he was there. Maybe 6 months. Maybe. He wasn't there long.
So when Dusty comes in, you're still, technically still on the creative team.
Technically. But I was getting paid. Let me say that.
Yeah. But Vince Russo's fired at the time. Because I know he was there at the beginning, then he comes back in like 2006. But Vince Russo was let go at that point.
I think so.
Who else was still on the creative team, quote unquote, at that time who was retained? Do you remember?
Nobody.
So basically, well, no, it must have been someone else in the room apart from you and Dusty for 20 minutes.
Okay, Mike Tenay, but he was the announcer. Don West, but they were announcers. And I think they had a guy there who... It was Rudy. He's a referee in WWE.
Rudy Charles.
Now. Rudy Charles. And his name is Daniel. I don't remember his last name now. He was the stenographer. He's a referee in the WWE now.
Dan Engler.
Engler.
Yeah.
Dan Engler. Yeah, that's his name. And Terry Taylor was there for a while. Jeremy Borash was there for a while, but they were all gone. when Dusty came in, he got rid of everybody.
I know he was only there for, I guess, 6 months. We're sort of estimating here, but did he do a good job, do you think, in the end? Or was it just no?
It's like anything else, you know. When Dusty booked mid Atlantic, Dusty just booked the main event. I heard the rest of it he left to who was the manager, James E. Yeah, he left the rest of the card to fill in to JJ. So JJ was actually the underneath booker, and Dusty just put his name on top with the name, and they did big business. And the Rock and Roll Express, and he had the big Russian, a couple of Russians there, Dusty, Magnum TA, and I can't remember his name now though. But that's who he worked with there.
Next question. Rob from Birmingham, UK says, hi, Dutch and James. Loving the podcast. Keep them coming. Question. I'd be interested to know what a wrestler's diet consisted of back in the day. The US is obviously famed for fast food, so is this how you all got by in the 70s and 80s? Any examples of great or disgusting food you came by in desperation on your travels on the road, or did venues provide your meals? How did you get your 5 a day? Hope this makes the cut. Best wishes to both. So, how did you feed yourself in the road? Let's stick with the 70s. Let's go for the formative years in the business.
You fed yourself.
So,
wherever you would want to stop.
No,
we would go to fast food joints because to sit down to get a meal in a restaurant took too long. Because we left as late as we could. So we want to spend more time at home. So say a trip you would leave, if you just drove it straight, would be, say, 2 hours. And you allowed, they say, 30 minutes to eat. So it's 2.5 hours. You don't have time to sit down in the restaurant. It could take an hour, according to how busy they were. And we would go to fast food joints, but Burger King or McDonald's or Krispy Kreme, or I kind of like the Krispy Kreme. But we would stop wherever you could get food, and we'd get it to go, and we'd take out and we'd eat on the road.
Well, how were you not all big fat fatties? Basically, you've just eaten fast food all day, every day.
Well, we were kind of. I mean, even the guys that worked out, they would still eat the same food. I mean, they would work it off in the gym, I guess. I don't know.
Did you ever, when you were on the road, pay attention to your diet, or was it just whatever it was, whatever it was?
Whatever was there. If there was a health food store across the street and McDonald's, I'd go to McDonald's. I'd go to McDonald's and I'd get me 2 burgers and a cup of coffee or a Coke, and I'd be good, and I'd go.
Where was the best place, if possible, that you could eat clean or relatively clean on the road?
Nowhere. We had truck stops and we had fast food joints. So take your choice. And, truck stops I thought that was worse than stopping at those restaurants like McDonald's and Burger King. So.
What did you think was the best fast food joint then? What was your favorite?
I liked, can't remember the name of it. It had the little burgers.
What, White Castle?
A Crystal or White Castle. I like those.
What was your order?
About 3 or 4 hamburgers and a French fries and a Coke. And that's it. I was gone.
Were there any particular chains that you liked at the time that are now defunct and no longer exist?
Does McDonald's still exist?
Yes.
I guess they do, yeah. No, not that I remember. Okay. They have some that have gone out of business, but they used to have a Denny's restaurant You don't remember Denny's?
No, we never got Denny's here.
Yeah, well, they used to have a Denny's. I don't even know if it's still in business, to tell you the truth. But the only reason I ate at Denny's was because where I lived, they had a Denny's on the corner. So I would go down there sometime just to sit down and enjoy a meal, and it wasn't too bad.
Denny's still exists, by the way, I think.
Does it?
Yeah. So we've got another question, food theme. So Addy Simmer. I was reading about the Flying Dutchman burger, which has become a big hit in recent times. Burgers and cheese without a bun and caramelized onions are the bun. So one question is, have you ever eaten or would Dutch ever eat one of these Flying Dutchman burgers?
I don't know. Anything with the Flying Dutchman name on it, I think is suspect. I think he said, where do you want to go? Let's go to Flying Dutchman's. I don't know about that. But no, I've never eaten there. And would I eat there? What is it? It's just a burger with some onions on it?
Yeah, no bread. I know you love your bread as well.
Well, I do like bread, but would I eat it? I would try it, maybe. But is that an English thing or a European thing?
No. I don't know. I don't know where this might be. He's got a second question anyway that's related. Says, is Dutch much of a foodie? What kinds of cuisine or dishes do you like eating the most? Thank you so much. So, what are your favorite dinners? Doesn't have to be on the road or anything, just in general.
They used to have a chain. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was buffet. Totally buffet. And you don't see buffets anymore, I don't think, since they had the pandemic, and may have went out before then. But if we saw a buffet, we were up in that bitch. we would go there and we would just, especially when you're in a territory, you're not making a lot of money. You might not have enough money for the next meal. So you would go in there and you would chow down, and you can make as many trips back and forth as you wanted. But when you left there, you got your money's worth. I can't remember that Ponderosa was one, I think, that ended up having a buffet. You could order steaks there too. And Bonanza was another thing that had all you could eat salad bar. But they did have buffets that, you could get chicken and this other stuff. They had a couple in Tampa that I really liked. I like food, but I do have a tendency to overeat. I do.
What about these days? What's your favorite meal? Or region of food, I guess.
No, I like steaks. Still like steaks. But now they're so damn expensive here, you can't hardly afford to eat them.
I can't believe you didn't say Waffle House back in the day as well.
Waffle House was a small. The reason we didn't go to Waffle House more, those little tables they have you sit at, it couldn't hold us. Guys were too big. I mean, you would sit right up on the table, and they only have like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 booths, and that was it. The rest of it, you were sitting at the bar. But it wasn't bad food, but it was good for breakfast, and that's it.
And you got some late night entertainment with Randy Savage occasionally as well. But that's a story it's a story we've told before.
No, but the Waffle House is famous now because of late night fights. And the reason it is because in a lot of these little towns in the States, it's a sobering up place. You go drinking and the bars close at 12 or 1. Well, you want to go get something to eat. Well, what's open? Waffle House. The TV weathermen I read, they used to base their predictions on the Waffle House. And they would say this storm is coming. If the Waffle House closed, it was going to be a bad one. But if they would stay open, well, it may be bad, but yeah, we can get through it. So yeah, I've seen a couple of fights in Waffle House. Savage was in one. I wrote about it in my book.
You can get signed at Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2Ls@gmail.com.
You certainly can.
There you go. Right. So
somebody wrote me the other day, I think you sent it to me. Wanted to know, did I have any old artifacts left over, and you sent it to me.
Yeah, I asked you this a week or two ago, and you said no, you pretty much got rid of everything, but you said you had a couple of things in storage.
Yeah, I
possibly.
do, and I'm going to go look. My closet is just horrible because everything is stuffed in there. And I tried to get in there. They can't even get in there. I'm going there to get some clothes, but I'm going to pull out all my stuff. I'm going to see what I got. I'm going to do a little video showing what I got. I'm going to have an auction, and the highest bidder gets it.
If you've got like a hat or something, I'll buy it off you.
Okay.
But like, you know, an old, a proper old style.
Let me see.
But
I think I got rid of most of those. I had a hat one time. It went out to here. It was huge. It was called, I guess, the 10-gallon hat. I don't know where they got the 10-gallon, but it was a huge, huge hat. You know, you can get hats now. They're not that expensive. But back then, the hat like this was about $300. Expensive hat.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want. I want something that's been properly like milled, you know. I never did that because I always said, you know, I was going to do an American road trip and I ended up just not doing it for a variety of reasons. But one thing I was going to buy was a proper pucker cowboy hat and just have it on my wall, just display it somewhere. I always wanted that. So if you've got one, I'll buy it off you.
Okay, you know what I found? I know I still got it. It's a little booklet, this paper, like like 3 pages. And what it is, it's from a company called, and I don't even know if they're still in business. I don't think they are. If anybody knows, write me and tell me. Carl and Hildebrand. And what they did, they specialize in wrestling attire. So if you wanted a Tarzan outfit, you know, they would put it in there and you just put your size in there and send it off to them. But they made this little booklet. They sold shoes, socks, boots, tights, like the top wear or trunks, sold those, and sold maybe a few jackets and masks. And that's what they sold. And I have one. I bet it's an old pamphlet. I call it a pamphlet. And it's at least 50 years old, at least. And with some prices in it. So somebody would be interested in that, I think.
Yeah, I'll have it off you. Why not? Next question. Tyson says, how did Rob Feinstein's situation affect Ring of Honor? At the time in 2004, they had a good roster and had worked out deals with other wrestling promotions like TNA to borrow talents like AJ Styles, Low-Ki, Samoa Joe, etc. They had impressive video marketing at the time and became very successful. But how did things change? I know some backstage people left and some talent like Low-Ki and AJ Styles, etc. What Rob did tarnish the image of Ring of Honor and affected the deals and backings they had, and some talent expressed their discomfort like Low-Ki and left Ring of Honor. So this happened in 2004 while you were booking TNA. You were dealing with Ring of Honor at the time. How did the Rob Feinstein situation affect it?
Well, I didn't really deal with Rob Feinstein during that. I was in TNA at the same time. And I don't know if they had any kind of a plans to work together. I never heard of any at all. But Feinstein, he kind of cooked his goose. He's still around, and but he had a guy buy the company. I think we've had him on here, Kerry Silkin.
Oh no, we've never had him as a guest, but
we never had him.
No,
really?
Yeah,
I thought we did.
No,
but. And the reason he bought Ring of Honor, he came to Puerto Rico and he's a wrestling fan. He saw on TV that day they had wrestling. He said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to this show." And he went to the show, enjoyed the hell out of it. Then he came to meet me wherever I was. I forgot he found me, and we became friends. And I still talk to him every now and then. But he ended up buying Ring of Honor. and he actually worked. I think their first TV deal they had. Did they have a TV deal before Feinstein, or no?
I can't remember that far back. They must have been somewhere. I mean, would they have been DVD exclusive until 2004? I don't know. I don't think.
Well,
yeah.
Well, that's how I watched them DVD. But
so yeah,
and he came to Puerto Rico one time, and I did this interview with him. I went over to his hotel, and he did the interview there. But see, I didn't know anything about him then. I found out later. But so when he got in that trouble that he got in, I think that cooked his goose in the wrestling business, because I don't think anybody wanted anything to do with him. I'm not sure of that.
Well, he was doing interviews for a long time afterwards on RF Video. A lot of people accepted his money.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the company. That's why he ended up selling it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Do you think there was any chance that Ring of Honor? So you never heard any like big super show, I guess, of indies between TNA and Ring of Honor at the time. It was always just going to be
no,
because I think I don't know if it was 2005 or something like that, where like TNA wrestlers could work Ring of Honor and vice versa, and then TNA put a stop to it at some point.
I never understood that either. You can only work with TNA. I was thinking, I mean, they weren't paying that damn good. So why would you take, and it's illegal to do that anyway.
Well, WWE do it. Well,
no, but it was still illegal. Now the contracts doesn't make it, but you still had a contract with WWE. And while it wasn't expressly written in the contract, and it may have been, you just signed it anyway, that you couldn't work for anybody else while you was on the contract for the 2 years, whether they booked you or not.
King Razor, Jackson, Mississippi. Hello, Mr. Dutch. My question I have for you is about Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Man gimmick. What do you think of the gimmick? Maybe it was phony. Did you think if he's rich, why is he a wrestler? Could you please share your thoughts?
No, I never thought if he's rich, why is he a wrestler? I always thought that if he was a wrestler, he got rich by wrestling. It's what I think. And Ted, I think Vince had this idea, and Vince would give him a ton of money to go party after the matches and give him a lot of money to tip the girls and tip that. And apparently that was supposed to increase the image of WWE. I think I would have tried to increase the image of WWE, but not giving a guy $1,000 to go to a strip club. Only the people in there know it. But after he'd been in a strip club, and when he came in again, he got a ton of attention. So, and what happened to Ted? I'd read that he would go in there and he'd meet those girls, and he became a sexaholic. What do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
He was addicted
to David
it.
Duchovny disease. Yeah.
And who was Duchovny? Who was that name?
Mulder and Scully, X-Files. He was Mulder or Scully.
But I didn't think the gimmick, I thought the gimmick was good, to tell you the truth. And he played it well. One time in Houston, maybe I told this story that, he would say, a kid come up and dribble this basketball 10 times. I'll give him $1,000. Well, a little kid come up there and he said, okay, kid, can you do this ball 10 times? Give $1,000. And his mama was there. To the fans from out of the audience, it's a shoot to them. So he's going 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And he kicked the ball. So, well, didn't quite make it. So, man, did he get a ton of heat on that. He did it on TV, too. Mm-hmm. But I heard later that they took the mother backstage and said, listen, we just trying to, and they slapped the hell out of her. And they give her the money, and she was happy. But the kids started crying. The mama started crying. So hell, I'd start crying too if I needed money. Somebody gonna give me $1,000 to damn bounce a basketball 10 times. That's $100 a bounce. But he got a ton of heat over that, and I don't know who come up with that idea, but I love that idea.
When did you hear of the sexaholic thing? Because I've heard Ted say that as well. So, before his religious revival kind of situation.
Oh no, we're not going to get in this religion, are we?
No, we've covered it fairly enough. But it's
no, he told me.
Oh, really?
Did he tell you?
Never spoke to him.
Really? Well, yeah. he told me.
When?
Well, when I talked to him.
Well, I don't know. When I just wanted to know if it was.
I don't know. I don't know when. He said he became addicted to it, and he went to therapy for it. I think. I'm gonna have to look that up.
I'm gonna have to be very careful what I Google here. Hang on. Right, Ted DiBiase, sexaholic.
Oh, sex therapy.
Will it be sex addiction? It's not coming up. Well, I mean, that's not anything he said. Apparently it was, but Ted DiBiase, candid about doing drugs on the road. That's a dangerous place to do drugs.
On the road?
Yeah. I mean, white lines and all that kind of thing. You
never read that anywhere about him?
I've heard that once, but I don't know where I heard that from, where he basically said, some people get addicted to drugs. But, I reread Bret Hart's book not too long ago, and he was the same. You've got to have a vice on the road to sort of survive.
And what was Bret's?
Same, women.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I never heard that about him.
Oh, yeah. He was just, he admits it himself. He was a serial cheater on the road.
He's still married?
To someone else, yes. Not the original wife, no.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what percentage of people on the road were faithful or not. I can't imagine, the list being, the percentage being too high.
Well, there were a lot of women around. I was, always. Because nobody ever wanted anything to do with me. No, but if a guy is willing, there's women willing to. It takes two,
Takes two to tango. We'll move on. Molly, hi Dutch and James. I was looking for old matches featuring yourself and stumbled on a match where you teamed up with Cactus Jack to fight the Rock and Roll Express. The biggest surprise was that Cactus Jack took the pinfall. Can you let us know? I mean, it says a lot. It says a lot about your run in WCW. That I guess.
No shit.
Wait
a minute. Who sent this in?
Molly.
Molly, you calling me a jobber? Is that what you're calling me?
You're going to hear from Dusty Rhodes sooner.
Absolutely. That's right. Keep it up. Keep it up, Molly.
Can you let us know what it was like working with Mick and just how good, bad, high-risk Foley was in the early years? Thank you and love the podcast. Before we get to that, we were talking about this off air, and you actually have a story about this match.
Yeah, I do. Okay, we're in the dressing room. We're going to Rock and Roll Express. And, hey, after a while, Mick they were using him really, really good. And all of a sudden they came in with the finish, and they were going to take it on Mick. And I went, what? Because I expected me, and I had no problem with it. It's a job to me. So when finally I went, whoever came in and told us to finish, and Mick seemed fine. I said, wait a minute. I asked him about it. I said, why are they beating you? I said, I have no problem with doing it. I mean, beating me. He said, no. Don't worry about it. He said, I'm leaving. I said, you're leaving? He said, yeah, I don't like the way they're using me here. And he had a point. And he said, I just don't want to do this because they don't really have anything in mind and no plans. And they just want to maybe come up with a little bit here and a little bit there or whatever. But he said, I'll do it because I was staying and he was leaving. So, which surprised me, and that was the first time I'd heard that he was leaving. If somebody told me, "Oh, when is Mick finishing up?" I'd heard nothing about it, because I think he just told them that night that he was finishing up. And what date was this? In the early 90s?
Yeah, I think
And I think he
1990, like middle of 1990, something like
I
that.
think he went to Japan from there,
Mm-hmm.
and later on, of course, he got his chance in WWF, and he went there and made the name bigger. But I had no problem with it at all, and it surprised me that they took it on Mick. And I saw the match back. This is a regular match, and Mick was good. He was very good. Rock and Roll was probably one of the greatest tag teams, in the last 20 or 30 years, because he had a lot of energy and a lot of young kids liked them, and Ricky looks like a little rock star anyway. You know who gave him that name, right?
What's that? Ricky Morton?
No, the Rock and Roll. Me and Lawler.
Right. Okay. So I think right. Jimmy Hart claims. Jerry
Jimmy
Lawler
Hart
claims.
Who claims what?
That they invented the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh, they did invent them, but because we stopped. Well, actually, Lawler come up with the name. We stopped at a truck stop. I've told this before. And we went in there, and Lawler got him a bunch of magazines, of rock and roll magazines, and was looking at them. And, and I said, "Hey," he said, "I thought about maybe giving them that, the little bandanas and this and that and the other." And I said, "Yeah, why don't you call them the Rock and Roll?" And they had the Midnight Express. He said, "Yeah, we call them the Rock and Roll Express." And that's how their name was born on a trip somewhere from Nashville to Memphis, as I recall. And then I heard that Jimmy Hart takes credit for it. So, but anyway, they were born in Memphis, and the first night, I've told this to Robert didn't even want to put the outfit on. He was embarrassed. And then when he came back and he saw the reaction they got, well, he didn't have any trouble putting it on then on out. So, but Ricky was that team. Ricky was the Rock and Roll. Robert was, because Ricky always did the interviews, and Robert never did the interview. Robert just filled that second role over there.
Before we get off Mick Foley,
yep,
in 1990 or 1991, no, I think it was 1990. So obviously, he'd be well known to do all the high risk stuff later on, but he was taking some horrendous bumps in WCW at that time in 1990 as well. I don't suppose you or anyone else ever had a word with him that you know of where they just said, "Dude, it's a house show in front of 400 people. You do not need to be taking back bumps onto the concrete."
I never had a suggestion to him that he didn't need to do that. Well, it's the way he is. He's built that way. You've seen the bump he took off the top of the house, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute, he's doing this? But that's the way he made his name. He went to Japan with all that crazy stuff, the barbed wire, the exploding matches. That's how he made his living. And the wilder it was, and of course, the Undertaker throwed him off the top of the cage. You couldn't have melted and poured me off the top of that cage. I ain't doing it. But he did it, and he made a lot of money doing it. So, my hat's off to him.
We're going to end on this question. Jeremy from the mountains of North Carolina. Hello, Dutch. Hello, James. First of all, I enjoy listening to the podcast. Thank you. I try my best to listen every week. I enjoy watching old wrestling videos and came across some Doug Furnas. Dutch, I know you wrestled Doug before and was wondering if you had any good stories about him. I know he was a powerlifting champion and one of the world's strongest men. I also know he had a heck of a drop kick. What was it like wrestling him, and what kind of guy was he behind the curtain? So your match with Doug Furnas was your lone pay-per-view appearance for WCW during your second run with your run with WCW, but not in Mid-Atlantic, I guess. And Doug Furnas then, stories.
Well, what I'm saying is when you work with those big muscle guys, that's supposed to have all this power. It's very hard to get them down, to get any steam on them, as they call it, because he just looks so impressive. You know, he was a running back for the University of Tennessee. He would get yards when they needed 1 yard. He could just knock people out of the way. And these are big guys weighing 270, 280, 300 pounds. He would just run into them and back them up. He would just get the required yardage to get the first down. But working with Doug in the ring was like, and I've said this before, it's almost a street fight under controlled conditions, because they're stiff. And I mean, damn wonder I didn't get hurt in some of these matches, because they were so strong. Doug didn't know how strong he was, especially in his legs. So, and we talked about this the other day, but I didn't like that match at the pay-per-view. It just didn't feel right. I didn't feel the temperature in the room. The people didn't feel the temperature in the room, because there was nothing even in the way of an angle between me and Doug Furnas. And that's the worst way to have a match. At least I should have done something to him, slapped him, or done something to him on TV to give him a reason to want to get back at me. But there was nothing. It was just a match. And that's the hardest time to have. If you're just going to have a match, you need your high-flying guys. And it was on first. Any booker would never put that match on first, because it is a plotting, not plotting, but plotting, like a match with no history behind it. And of course, the people are not going to get enthused about it. There's no need to. So we worked it for 10 minutes, and I did it the best I could. So that's all I could do. I had no help leading into it. We had no context. We had no background. We had nothing. We just went out and had a match. Working with Doug back in those days was like working with a damn John Deere tractor. You couldn't move him. I mean, and he loosened up, but still you could feel that he was tensed up the whole time.
Did you ever wrestle him any other times?
I wrestled him, and he's from Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was up there, that's where he was the stiffest, because everybody remembered him as a University of Tennessee football player. And he had a pretty big name there. So it was actually harder to work with him there. So I did the best I could. I mean, some of the greatest matches I ever had, but were guys was as light as a feather, because now you're not knowing you're going to get hurt. See, with Doug, you have to watch him, because he didn't know how strong he was, and he could hurt you without knowing it. So I did the best I could with him.
The thing with Doug Furnas, right? And I remember him in the WWF. He had his greatest success in Japan. He was always told, he's one of the strongest people in the world. But the thing is, you looked at him, and I don't know if this was different in person, but on television, he looked like 100 other guys. Like, he didn't have a particularly impressive physique. There's people with strongest men in the world characters like Ken Patera or Mark Henry or something like that, and they looked the part. But like with Doug Furnas, everyone would always talk about how strong he was, his powerlifting records, and you'd look at him, and he just looked like 100 other guys.
Yep. Well, and the thing with Doug too is Doug wasn't a strong talker at all. Actually, he was. If you'd made a trip with Doug, he wouldn't say anything unless you said something to him. You could say something to him, and he would answer you. But as far as just starting conversation, that wasn't his strong suit. And his interviews followed suit, because his interview actually hurt him, because it didn't match the way he looked.
One last thing. Oh, you wrestled. It was over 11 minutes long, that match. I was just looking at that there. Do you
11 minutes? I need to come out with 11 minutes of torture
11
for the
minutes,
fans,
18 seconds
for the fans and for me.
One more thing. Did you ever meet his brother? Because I think he was in SMW.
Yeah, I met
Smokey.
I met his brother.
Right. So was he a college football star as well, or something like that, and he tried.
He played football, but he didn't have the success that Doug had. And of course, I don't think he put as much effort in the weight room as Doug did. See, Doug was short. See, what makes a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger, what made him look so good is he was tall. He's about 6'4", I think. Isn't he that tall?
I don't think he's that tall. I think he might be like 6'1".
Well,
but he's got like a really tiny waist, so I think the proportions are different. To like
and he had those legs that were cut up. Doug was short. Doug was about 5'10", I think. And of course, when you're 5'10", it's easier to look like bigger. And Doug was big, but you'd have to get up next to him and see it. From a distance, like he said, he looked like 100 other guys.
I'm looking at this. It says peak height for Arnold Schwarzenegger estimated at 6'1.5". Current height just a shade under 5'11". So I guess all those deadlifts and squats might have shortened him up quite a lot.
No, people get shorter as they get older.
Yeah, not by 3 inches though. It's 6'1.5" by it's almost 5'10.5". It's looking like. Anyway, the reason I bring up Doug's brother is because I think it's an old Jim Cornette story where he said that he tried to debut him in Knoxville or wherever it was, and it went wrong completely because it's been a long time since I heard the story, but it's something like he jumped into the ring, tackled somebody, and then his momentum carried him through so hard that he ended up tackling himself out of the ring on the other side.
I never heard that story. But see, they get into the business and they want to make it look real. So they just make it real. So what he did, he had so much momentum, he just kept going. And ended up on outside by himself, I guess. I don't know.
If someone can link me to that story somewhere, I'd be appreciative about that, because I can't remember what it was. But it was something like that. And essentially, it was his first and last appearance. And, it was sort of done after that. On that note, we're going to shut down this podcast. That was Ask Dutch Anything, episode 49, I think. I don't know. I think it was. So we will catch you again on Friday. And one more thing.
Wait a minute. You mentioned Brickhouse Brown was in that. What is it? The Legacy deal?
Yeah, the Legacy wing of the WWE Hall of Fame.
I got another story I'll tell next week.
Okay.
About me and Mr. Brickhouse in a Louisiana town that was sold out.
Okay, I'm writing it down. Brickhouse Brown. This isn't the one where it's the snowman, was it? You're getting confused.
No. This is a different one. This different one.
Excellent then. Okay, if someone right, I've written a note, but I might forget. So if someone can email me and just put Brickhouse Brown down, tell the story, and we'll get it into next week's episode.
I sent it to you.
Did you? Oh yeah, you did.
I sent. Brother, what are you getting, dementia now?
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of shows. What can I say? I can't remember what the number of the show was. I only said it an hour ago.
And that falls back in with when I'm saying reading the temperature of the room. And I went to anyway, we'll tell it next week.
We'll figure it out. I've also written a note for white heat as well. So if anyone's got a story about white heat and examples of that, write in as well in case I forget. But for now, the important email is questionsfordutch@gmail.com. That's how you remind me of stuff I've asked you to remind me of, and also to submit questions for Ask Dutch Anything. And we will see you on Friday for Storytime with Dutch Mantell. Until then, we the people.
We the people. Hey, you notice we the people, they're using it quite a lot now in this presidential campaign.
Well, it's trademark free.
Yeah, but it is trademark free. Anybody can use it, or I'd be suing them right now. We the people. All right, we the people. See you next week.